अच्छा कर दिया जला दिया من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عن فاطمة الزهراء عليها السلام بنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم أنها قالت دخل علي أبي رسول الله في بعض الأيام فقال السلام عليك يا فاطمة فقلت عليك السلام قال إني أجد في بدني ضعفا فقلت له أويتك بالله يا أبتاه من الضعف فقال يا فاطمة ائتني بالكساء اليماني فغطيني به فأتيته بكساء اليماني فغطيته به وصرت أنظر إليه وإذا وجهه يتلأله كأنه بدر في ليلة تمامه وكماله فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسن قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي وقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوضي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي فقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله فقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء فدنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جدا السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء فقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي وشافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين فقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء فقال له عليك السلام يا أخي ويا وصي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء، ثم آتيت نحو الكساء وقلت: السلام عليك يا أبتاه، يا رسول الله، أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء؟ فقال: وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بدعتي، قد أذنت لك. فدخلت تحت الكساء، فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذ أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومى بيده يمنى إلى السماء وقال: اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاستي وحامتي، لحمه لحمي ودمه دمي، يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم. أنا هرب لمن هاربكم، وسلم لمن سالمكم، وعدو لمن عاداهم، ومحب لمن أحبهم. إنهم مني وأنا منهم. فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم، وأذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
فقال الله عز وجل: يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات، إني ما خلقت السماء مبنية ولا أرضا ملهية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء خمسة الذي هم تحت الكساء. فقال أمين جبرائيل: يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء؟ فقال عز وجل: هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة، هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
فقال جبرائيل: يا رب أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا؟ فقال الله: نعم، قد أذنت لك. فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال: السلام عليك يا رسول الله. العلي العلا يقرئك السلام ويحصك بالتحية والإكرام، ويقول لك وعزتي وجلالي: إني ما خلقت سماء مبنية ولا أرضا مضية ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضية ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم، وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم. فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ فقال رسول الله: وعليك السلام يا أمين وحي الله، إنه نعم، قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء، فقال أبي: إن الله قد أوحى إليكم يقول: إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
فقال علي لأبي: يا رسول الله، أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. وقال النبي: والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة النجية، ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وحفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وفاز شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. فقال بي رسول الله: يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة النجية، ما ذكرنا خبرنا هذا في محفل محافل أهل الأرض، وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا، وفيهم محموم إلا وفرج الله همه، ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه، ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. فقال علي عليه السلام: إذا والله فزنا وسعدنا، وكذلك شيعتنا فازوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Testing.
برائے تاکیل ظہور امام زمانہ بلند تر صلوات اللہم صل علی محمد وآل محمد.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء، حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وعلى منكري فضائلهم من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. آمين رب العالمين. أما بعد، قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل جاء الحق وزهق الباطل فإن الباطل كان زهوقا. صدق الله العلي العظيم وآمنا به. نوروا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
أحبائي, tonight's discussion in honor of the Master of the Universe, the one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted the management of everything within the realm of existence, the one who will bring into actuality the aspirations of all the Anbiya from Adam until Khatam. What was the hope and the desire of Nabi Adam from the prophethood of Adam? What were the goals and the visions of Nabi Nuh from the prophethood of Nuh? The goals and the vision of Musa from the prophethood of Nabi Musa? The goals and the aspirations of Nabi Isa from his prophethood? Balki the goals and the vision of Rasulullah from his prophethood, all of this will be actualized in the hands or at the hands or through the hands of Maulana Sahib al-Amri wa Zaman.
اللهم صل
فانتظار, this state of awaiting for the 12th Imam, is not an act in its general state which is limited to human beings such as you and I, but the prophets within the heavens eagerly await for the dhuhur of the Imam, because it is through this Imam that the goals of their prophethood are actualized. Kalam Azim. Nabiullah Adam gave glad tidings of Rasulullah to his ummah. Nabiullah Nuh gave glad tidings to his ummah for Rasulullah. Yusuf gave tidings to his ummah for Rasulullah. Isa gave glad tidings to his ummah for Rasulullah. Humanity waited for Rasulullah. Rasulullah came, he said, wait for the Mahdi. For this celebration and the milad of the Sultan of our time has a number of dimensions. A dimension of fada'il from an aqa'idi perspective and ma'rifah. And on the other side, we have a janib which is janib amali, in terms of amal and suluk, a lifestyle that we are supposed to embark on in order to be a part of this grand movement that the world is moving towards. Shufu, Ahibai, you and I, we are engrossed and we are consumed in a very tiny bubble. This bubble consists of my life, yani me, my family members, my wife, my children, my parents, my work, perhaps my friends. This is my bubble. This is the parameters within which I live my life. And every moving day, I get closer to either death or to something much grander. But as I keep moving within this bubble, it is important for us to recognize that outside this bubble, there is an ocean of reality which the waves are pushing us towards. This ocean of reality, the waves push us towards the dhuhur of the Imam. And if the dhuhur of the Imam happens while I am consumed within this bubble which I have created for myself, then I will lose out on being a part of the grandest movements to happen on earth that determines either success or failure. Now we have within our hadith that the signs of the 12th Imam, alamat al-dhuhur, are divided into two categories. There is the alamat that are the hatmiya or the mahtum, and you have the ghayr mahtum. Mahtum are those signs that 100% will occur, without a doubt. Mahtum. And then the Ghair Mahtum are signs that are contingent, depending on the events of the day and the fact that man has free will and a control to a certain extent over his destiny. Certain signs may happen, may not happen. But there are some signs that will happen. One of the signs that are a guarantee is the coming out of Sufyani. A sign from the guaranteed signs is the crying out of Jibreel, the cry of Jibreel on the 23rd of Shahr Ramadan. But even when you take into consideration the signs that are mahtum, you find within the hadith that the imams in a number of the hadith describe the dhuhur of the imam as an occurrence like a shooting star in the sky. Tom, don't know if you have noticed the shooting star. From nowhere in the darkness of the sky, in the flash of a second, you have this light just sprint through the sky. You didn't know it was coming. You didn't know it has gone. It has appeared. Before you knew it, it went and left. Some of the ahadith of the Imam in regards to the dhuhur of Imam al-Hujjah, they say it's like a shooting star. Meaning what? Person could be in such a state of ghafla. The dhuhur of the Imam happened and he missed out. It became too late. Why? Because he was consumed in this bubble. Even the signs that were there from the mahtum, because his consumption of his life in this bubble, he missed out on that. The dhuhur happened. And he was unprepared. Therefore, the celebration of the Mawlud of the master of our time supposed to trigger within us wa'i, a state of self-awareness. And this self-awareness now helps us plan how we need to live our life. Life choices that require a mawqif, that require a stance. Every passing day is an opportunity to take this stance. With this in mind, I want to share with you 3 categories of hadith in regard to the awaited master of our time. The first category of hadith that describes alamat al-dhuhur in terms of the general state of affairs which dictate and govern the end of times and are alarm bells for the happening of the dhuhur. And if one is in a state of ghafla and thinking that the dhuhur is not about to happen, he awakens and he reanalyzes the times and his own state. Number 1. Number 2, who are some of the companions, or what is the caliber of some of the companions of Imam al-Hujjah from the 313? And number 3, a glimpse at the beginning stages of the dhuhur of the Imam. In a very brief manner, what happens and how it transpires. All of this with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
The first hadith, Ahibba'i, and the book that I'm referring to, or the text that I'm referring to today, is a text that is entitled Imam al Mahdi min al Mahd ila al-Dhuhur by Allama al-Marhum Sayyid Muhammad Kadim al-Kazwini, one of the ulama and the khutaba of Tashayyu, who has done great service for those brothers who are involved in translation. If there was a book, Shamil, Kamil to a certain extent, all-encompassing, that will shed light and truly move the conscience of the reader and create love towards Imam al-Hujjah, such that when you finish reading the book end to end, you are able to envision Imam al-Hujjah and envision the entire dhuhur in its entirety, then there is a book like this. Said Muhammad Qadim al-Qazwini, rahmatullah alayh, is narrated. He wrote an entire encyclopedia of the biographies of the 12 Imams. And in his grave, he decided that he will be buried with these books. And one of the books was Al-Imam al-Sadiq min al-Mahdi ila al-Lahd. Imam al-Sadiq from the cradle to the grave. One of his family members, years later, when he was buried, they saw in Alam al-Barzakh that Sayyid Muhammad Qadim al-Qazwini rahmatullah alayh was seated in his grave, and the Imam Maulana Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah, was in Alam al-Barzakh, was looking at the book of Sayyid Qadim al-Qazwini with a smile. The Sayyid Muhammad Qadim al-Qazwini, when he passed away, he had put in his wasiyah that he wants to be buried in Karbala. Years later, when he was actually buried in Karbala and the janazah was transferred and moved over to Karbala al-Muqaddas, years later, we have within our fiqh, you can be buried in a temporary grave and then be transferred to the Holy Lands. Years later, when they opened his janazah, his body and his coffin was fresh as can be. Man who has died years ago. It's as if he's sleeping inside of his casket. I said Muhammad Qadim al-Qazwini. He narrates this hadith, and the hadith in itself is taken from the primary source.
تعطیل ظهور امام زمانہ بلندتر صلوات.
The primary source is taken from Bihar. Look at the hadith. Hadith is on Akhirul Zaman by who? By Maulana Amirul Mu'mineen Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Mawla al-Kainat is speaking with who? With Sa'sa ibn Sawhan. Masjid Sa'sa, you have seen in Najaf al-Ashraf, the outskirts of Najaf al-Ashraf. Sa'sa ibn Sawhan, inshallah, if Allah Azza wa Jal gives us the tawfiq in the Shahr Ramadan, we have one lecture just on the life of Sa'sa, and you see the products of the tarbiyah of Amirul Mu'mineen. Sa'sa ibn Sawhan was one of the very few people who attended the funeral of Amirul Mu'mineen. Amirul Mu'mineen, as you know, was buried in the darkness of the night, and there were very few who were available. And Sa'sa ibn Sawhan actually recited a marthiyah when Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam was throwing sand on the grave of Amirul Mu'mineen. Heartbreaking eulogy that Sa'sa ibn Sawhan recited from the Hawariyin of Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Amir is speaking with Sa'sa ibn Sawhan, and Amir is telling him about the end of times that will dictate the dhuhur of the Imam. He goes on to say, إِذَا أَمَاتَ النَّاسُ الصَّلَاةِ, the people killed the salat. Yani the people killed the salat, meaning what? Number one, either salat as an institution is abandoned by the people. Many households, sometimes it becomes common, 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, 1 month goes without salat being recited. Us might be something simple. Amirul Mu'mineen tells Sa'sa ibn Sawhan, for a Muslim, when this becomes the state of affairs, Akhirul Zaman, number one, they don't pray altogether, or number two, if they pray, it is in the bodily form without any sorts of presence of the mind inside of salat. And then there is something much greater than that. the values of salat that are protected, in terms of you living the values that you utter for the phrases that you utter in salat. This is now iqamatu salat. واستحلوا الكذب وأكلوا الربا. Speaking of lies becomes normal. It's the norm. To lie is the norm. Consuming interest, yani over here what is meant by interest, riba, usury, became normal. وَأَخَذُوا الرِّشَا, corruption, for the world to continue or for business to happen, is the norm. Look at what Amir al Mu'mineen says. وَبَاعُ الدِّينِ بِالدُّنْيَا. They began to use the religion as a commodity, and they sold the deen for the dunya. Sold the deen for the dunya has multiple meanings. Ba'uddin bid-dunya. Yani they gave up the principles of the religion in exchange for the temporary pleasures of the dunya, number one. Number two, they manipulated the religion for the gains of the dunya. The religion became nothing but a tool and a carrier for them to achieve their worldly ambitions, be it from a social perspective, from a political perspective, from an economic perspective. Manipulation of the religion for worldly gain, to a great extent, has tainted the reputation of religion and the reputation of Islam. Many times the people who are naive, the commoners, they hate the religion and they hate the men of religion because of the crimes committed by the men of religion using the name of the religion. Became apostates. The world is witness to this. The Imam goes on to say something that is truly scary. وَاتَّبَعُوا الْأَهْوَاءَ. The religion became a religion of opinion. Each and every person is a follower of his or her opinion of the religion. A person will only follow the principles of the religion in the manner that he understands the religion. But what Rasulullah said, what Amir al Mu'mineen said on one side, what makes sense to me, I will follow. How the deen makes sense to me, I will follow. Yani the religion becomes a summary of his mental perceptions of what is right and wrong. The deen becomes nothing but disintegrated opinions that each and every person has about what is right and what is wrong. What is wilaya, what is not wilaya. What is tabarra, what is not tabarra. What is azadari, what is not azadari. It became opinionated. Amir al Mu'mineen tells to Sa'sa ibn Sohan. And Sa'sa ibn Sohan was surprised, which means for the Shias of Ali Muhammad, at that point, the likes of Sa'sa ibn Sohan, they couldn't fathom a time that Islam would come where people would have the audacity to opinionate religion. But we live in the time which is known as the time of the anti-expert. Everyone and anyone who has an opinion about anything and everything has the right to voice it, whether they are an expert or not an expert, and become an authority in it. Sahilola? You look at sometimes, even in the most basic forms, you look at certain news channels. When you go through the mobile app or you read the news online, you will find for certain news channels, under a certain news topic, it will tell you, if you have any opinion or any information regarding this particular piece of news, please contact us. And other times you will see on the news outlets that a certain event in the media is covered, but it will say this piece of information is not verified. Back in the day, there was a certain standard for journalism. You must have hit certain requirements in the field of journalism and have certain levels of credibility in writing articles for smaller journals or smaller magazines before you qualify to have a column or write a piece in a major newspaper. Subhanallah. Today, it's the opposite. The age of the anti-expert. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam points towards it. And then he goes on to say, وَكَانَ زَعِيمُ الْقَوْمِ أَرْذَلِهِمْ. The leader of the community is the one who is the lowliest person. The most debased person is the one who takes the position of leadership. Meaning that the one who is the most unqualified are the ones who are trusted with the position of leadership. And when you think about this, Amir al-Mu'minin is not talking about a certain particular incident or an institution, but Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam is pointing out towards the general state of the dunya. And when I was going through this hadith today, something came to my mind, which is an application of this hadith. The leader of a community, minhu. Leader of a community is who? To a great extent, somebody who influences the thoughts and the behavior of the masses. It's a fair definition of a leader. Sahilullah. Today, when you go onto social media and you look at people termed as influencers who influence the thoughts and the belief of millions of people in a number of things, including religion and outside of religion, what is the caliber of these influencers who are taken to be as leaders or authorities within that field? You will find them to be the lowliest of the low, the lowest of the low when it comes to morality or technical expertise in a certain subject. But yet they are the people of opinion who have followers in the issues of haqq or in issues of halal and haram, right and wrong, whether it is in religion or outside of religion. Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam goes on to say, and I will leave the tafsir of this up to you. وَتَشَبَّحُ النِّسَاء بِالرِّجَالِ وَالرِّجَالُ بِالنِّسَاءِ. And the two genders assimilating between themselves to a position that gender A tries to resemble gender B and vice versa, to the extent that there is no difference between gender A and gender B. Waqi'an, a person sits back and asks himself, from this entire list, and I've only chosen and selected few hand-picked alamat that Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam speaks about, how deep of these social signs are you and I living in? How much of an alarm bell does it raise within us? And are these signs dire enough to action change within our lifestyle? This is from the first set of the alamat in regards to the prevailing times before the dhuhur of Maulana Sahib al-Am. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
But the signs go on to say that the religious state of the people during the time of the dhuhur. Al-Hadith al-Sharif is narrated by Maulana Imam Baqir salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil farajah. And he narrates on authority of Amir al-Mu'mineen, where he goes on to say, in regards to the 12th Imam, له غيبة يرتد فيها أقوام ويثبت فيها على الدين آخرون. The ghaiba is such that due to the long period of the ghaiba, people will become apostates. Yartad means apostate, meaning that you once had to be a believer in the Mahdi, but because of the times and the situations, you negated your belief in the Mahdi. Yartad. Yani a believer, a staunch person who truly from the bottom of his heart said, Allahumma kulli waliyika al-faraj. In the end, the events of the ghaiba are such that he negates the Imam to begin with. Whether it is because of economic pressure, financial pressure, religious pressure, any other pressure. These words of Amir al-Mu'mineen are supposed to create within us a sense of caution and at the same time a plan of action. Ani, how do I protect my iman and my aqidah in Imam al-Hujjah today in such a way that it will be there even after 5 years or 10 years? Today, if I believe in the Mahdi, in the awaited Imam, how do I transfer this belief to my children and to my family members? Because keep in mind the alamat al-dhuhur in which we live, these signs which Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam spoke about get only more and more stauncher by the time our children grow up. If we think the environment is decayed and filthy today, imagine the filth after 10 years. And if my child is living in an environment of filth, then what have I done to vaccinate my child against this filth? What power of immunity am I putting inside of him? For my child? But for me, awalan. يرتد فيها أقوام ويثبت فيها على الدين آخرون. But the Imam goes on to say there are others who will remain steadfast. Look at the words used by Amir al-Mu'mineen. Yuthbit, from thabat, yani to remain steadfast. You recite a dua in sajda, in ziyarat ashura. وثبت لي قدم صدق عندك مع الحسين. وثبت لي, establish, keep me firm. And over here Imam says ويثبت فيها, yani if you want to remain steadfast in the ghaiba of the 12th Imam, your door is Aba Abdullah al-Husayn. And the Imam says, if you are going to ask for this steadfastness in ghaiba, don't ask for it while you are sitting. Don't ask for it while you are standing. Ask for it while you are in a state of sujood. فَيُؤْذُونَ. The hadith says, فَيُؤْذُونَ. Over here, the letter fa of consequence. Yani the letter fa denotes consequence. Consequentially, they shall be oppressed and they shall be harmed because of the fact that they remain steadfast on the path of the Imam. The Imam goes on to give glad tidings. What motivates a person to withstand this oppression and isolation during the time of the Dhuhr, during the time of the Ghaibah of the Imam? Because of his yaqeen of what he's going to gain when the ultimate Dhuhr happens. In this regards, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
This ahibba'i is in regards to the signs of the alamat. When it comes to the ansar of the imams, you find that Hadith al-Sharif talks about the fact that there are 313 ashab of the imams. 313 from the ashab. These are the close companions of the Imam and the highest ranking generals within the army of the Imam. The choicest of the choicest and the best of the best. Sabiqun as-sabiqun. Truly. And underneath them, from the ashab, there is the ansar. And there are tens and tens and tens of thousands of ansar of Imam al-Hujjah. People who tried in their daily lives and they made mistakes here and there, but their iman pushed them to meet up with the 12th Imam. But to create shawq within us who wish to be and aspire to be from the ranks of these companions of the Imam. Who are some of the companions from these 313? Hadith al-Sharif narrates, this is a hadith that is narrated by Mufaddal ibn Umar, who is one of the companions of the 6th Imam. And we have the very famous book of Tawheed, Kitab al-Tawheed, which is narrated by Mufaddal ibn Umar on authority of Maulana Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ajil faraja, where he speaks about and establishes Tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the wonders of the creation of the body in itself. Kitab Tawheed of Mufaddal ibn Umar is also translated in English for those who would like to review. The Imam goes on to say, يخرج مع المهدي من ظهر الكوفة 27 رجلا. As the Imam makes his entry into the city of Kufa, and you can imagine this, the city of Kufa, within the landscape of the city of Kufa, you have Masjid al-Kufa, and in the outskirts, Yani Najaf mixes with Kufa. Within this skyline, you have the Qubba of Maulana Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Hadith al-Sharif says, as the Imam, 6th Imam is speaking, as the Mahdi makes his entry into Kufa, there will be with him 27 people who will be raised from the dead. And Tomya Shia, when you aspire to be from amongst the helpers of the awaited Imam, look at the heavyweight companions that we are seeking to be in the company with. From the 27 people, he goes on to say, 27 rajulan. There will be 27 people with him. 15 min qawmi Musa. 15 people will be raised from the dead who are from the time of Nabiullah Musa. الذين كانوا يهدون بالحق وبه يعدلون. These are those 15 people who upheld the Sharia of Nabi Musa and the true teachings of Nabi Musa. They will appear with the 12th Imam. Assalamu alayka ya waritha Musa Kalimillah. And the big part of the followers of Bani Israel will come towards the fold of Tashayyu through the guidance of these 15 people who are from the selected ummah of Nabiullah Musa. وَسَبْعَةُ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكَهْفِ. The 7 people of the Ashab al-Kahf will be given life again to be a part of the movement of Imam al-Hujjah. The 7 people who became 7 wonders of the world because of their stance in upholding Tawheed, and they shunned the entire community in which they lived. Their jaza is that they return with the awaited Imam. Yoshua ibn Nun, the successor of Nabi Musa, Yoshua ibn Nun, shall be from amongst the 313. Again, and through him, a lot of the Bani Israel will come into the fold of Islam. Ba'ad. Was-Salman al-Muhammadi. Salman, who we call Salman al-Farsi, but Rasulullah gave him the title Salman al-Muhammadi because he said, Salman minna ahl al-Bayt. What was the loyalty of Salman to Amir al-Mu'mineen? Do you know how much it pained Salman that the rights of his Mawla were usurped in Saqifa? If you could quantify the pain of Salman's heart, if you could quantify the pain within Salman's heart, Allah Azza wa Jal compensated Salman for this wilayah by saying to him, if you will not live for the day to see the rule of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we will bring you back to life to see the rule of the Mahdi, who will rule in the name of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And enter Salman will be a part of that government. Because from these 313, these are the top-notch generals, the leaders of the universe, who will be governing the people, the ministers under this government of Imam al-Hujjah, to live under the leadership of Salman al-Muhammadi. Ba'ad wa Miqdad, companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ba'ad wa Malik al-Ashtar, this right hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam in the battle of Siffin, who was sent as the wali towards Egypt. To live in the company of people like these, to be under a government that is led by Salman and Malik al-Ashtar, is one. To envision yourself to be a part of a government where you take instructions from Salman that are given to him by Imam al-Hujjah. This is life. This is existence. This is shawq. This is that encouragement that pushes us to make the right lifestyle choices, because this is what awaits us, and this is reality and the haqq. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Ahibbai, Hadith Sharif, and I end with this. The narrations mention that the dhuhur of the Imam happens, and there is big and there is discussion in regards to the definition of dhuhur and qiyam. Dhuhur, yani reappearance. Qiyam, the beginning of the revolution. But we will leave this for now. Hadith al-Sharif says, dhuhur of the Imam happens in Makkah, in the Kaaba, in Masjid al-Haram, between the Rukun and the Maqam. Amir al-Mu'minin or Imam al-Hujjah stands between the Rukun and the Maqam and calls out for the bay'ah to be given. And if you can envision this in your mind, the hadith says the Imam will be leaning towards the Kaaba. His back, he will be leaning against the Kaaba. Where between the Rukn and the Maqam, will call out towards the bay'ah, and the first person to come down and give the bay'ah to Maulana Sahib al-Amr is none other than Jibreel alayhi salam. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد وعجل. Jibreel gives the bay'ah to Imam al-Hujjah. And from here the 313, and then the thousands upon the thousands who begin to join the revolution of the Imam. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam goes on to say that the dhuhur of the 12th Imam and the call of the bay'ah happens on the 10th of Muharram. Yani Yawm Ashura. For a person thinks, and every time you recite this dua al-ahad in the morning, or you recite Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-faraj, you envision yourself. How is your Muharram every year? When you are in a state of aza, when you're in a state of tears, with your matam and your sha'air in all their forms and intensities and variances. In this form, 1 year we will be required in this state of azah to make our way towards Makkah al-Mukarramah to give bay'ah to Imam al-Hujjah. In your black clothes, in your kaffans, with your heads and your backs and your chests and the wounds of azah with it, they will march towards Imam al-Hujjah. Yawm Ashura, the day that it rained blood from the skies, Imam al-Hujjah calls out, Aina talibu bidamil maktuli bi Karbala, Yawm Ashura. And whenever a person loses direction in life, whenever a person wills motivation in life, what am I doing? Where am I going? What have I achieved? This is that manzar I need to have in my mind. That day is coming. Am I making it or am I not making it? هذا هو موقف. Hadith says Imam will go from Mecca towards Medina. There's a number of things that will happen in Mecca. Inshallah, if we have the tawfiq, we'll discuss this in detail. And then he will go to Medina, and a number of events will happen into Medina. And from Medina, the Imam goes towards Kufa. And as he enters into Kufa, the hadith Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam mentions that the Imam will give a khutbah in Masjid al-Kufa, but the people will not be able to understand, the people will not be able to hear a single word that the Imam utters. Ajib. The Imam goes on to say, you know why? Because of the loud screams of crying upon the people just seeing the Imam, overcome with happiness, overcome with anxiety, everything and anything, the people weeping to see the Jamal of the Yusuf of Ali Muhammad. How many years the Shias have waited for a Ma'soom Imam to rise up in leadership after Amir al-Mu'mineen? The Imam will give a khutbah. They will not be able to hear a single word from the khutbah. The second Friday that Imam is in Kufa, the people will come to him and they will say, Ya Ibn Rasulullah. And we have within our hadith that even upon the dhuhur of the Imam will never be called by his name. He will not even be called by the title Mahdi that we, or I should say I use so loosely. He will be called Ya Hujjatullah and Ya Bakiyatullah fil Ardh, out of respect for his position. So they will go to him, they will say, Ya Bakiyatullah fil Ardh. This Masjid al-Kufa is not big enough for us to pray behind you. Shaifeen, and this is why I say Arba'in, or the ulama say the Arba'in is a preview of the Dawla and the government of Ali Muhammad. Have you seen when you cannot enter into the Dari in Karbala? When you cannot walk Bain al-Haramain? Those who saw Arba'in in its peak in the millions, such that people have seen, they take flights of 19 hours, they never enter into the Dari of Imam al-Hussein. But they saw the Qubbah and they said, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. You get, how is that feeling? The people will come and they'll say, Ya Bakiyatullah fil Ardh. There is no space in Masjid al-Kufa. And into Mu'mineen, you can envision Masjid al-Kufa from its Sahan and the pond in the middle and the alleyways and the new Sahan of Imam Muslim bin Aqil and the Mihrab of Amir al-Mu'mineen. No space to enter Masjid al-Kufa. They'll say, Ya Bakiyatullah fil Ardh. There's no space for us to pray behind you in Masjid al-Kufa. Over here, there is one ishara which is latif. The Imam will be so accessible that the people will be able to approach him and speak to him. From everything the Imam has to do, he has to liberate the world and he has to spread peace and justice. Despite all this, the Imam will not have created a barrier that the people can't speak with me. La, the most simplest of things, a person has a concern in his heart, he goes running towards the Imam. Ya Rahmatullah al-Wasi'ah. Hadith says, Imam will go to the deserts and he will sit down and he will plan out the construction of Masjid al-Kufa in its entirety. The hadith says the expansion of the city of Kufa will be such because of the population rush. Everyone wants to live in Kufa. The Kufa is the residence of the Imam. The houses of the city of Kufa will mix with the houses of the city of Karbala. Yani the expansion of the city of Kufa, straight that Kufa and Karbala are like one city. I feel how the Mawqibs connect Najaf with Karbala. All of these, the previews that come through your mind for what is awaiting us. The hadith goes on to say, the Imam then goes from Kufa to Karbala al-Muqaddasa. And he enters into the Dari of Sayyid al-Shuhada. And the entire world is watching. For the hadith says, Imam al-Hujjah enters into the grave of Sayyid al-Shuhada, inside of the Dari. In the mu'min, it is as if your heart is with Imam al-Hujjah and enter you're walking behind the blessed Imam, between the crowds, watching for every step that your master takes. The hadith says that he enters into the qabr of Imam al-Hussein. And the alam is waiting. Entire Karbala is waiting. This master entered inside of the Dari to do what? When will he come out? What will he say? What will he do? Hadith says, Imam al-Hujjah comes out of the dhari of Sayyid al-Shuhada and is holding the body of Ali al-Asghar in his hands. He has the body of this tender baby in his hands, and the arrow is still lodged in the neck of Ali al-Akbar. And he raises him towards the sky. This is Imam al-Hussein this is Imam al-Hujjah in the Sahan of the Haram of Imam al-Hussein. He lifts up the infant and he says, "Oh people, if there was a sin for the elders, then what was the sin of this infant?" And much as today is Jashan, but today is also a day of tears. And this is in the seerah of Imam al-Hujjah, because we know bila shakkin wala raib that even on this day Imam al-Hujjah weeps for Karbala. Fala andubannaka, he says himself in Ziyarat al-Nahiya, Fala andubannaka sabahan wa masa'an. I will weep for you every morning and every evening. وَلَا أَبْكِيَنَّ عَلَيْكَ بَدَلَ الدُّمُوعِ دَمًا حَسْرَةً عَلَيْكَ. Imam al-Hujjah says, and I shall weep for you tears instead of blood. I shall weep for you blood instead of tears. For this is the movement of the Imam to avenge Karbala. And our lifestyle choices dictate whether we will be a part of this movement or not. And with this, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on these glorious nights of Sha'ban to hasten the reappearance of Maulana Sahib al-Amr. On these glorious nights of Sha'ban, by the Sheikh of Imam al-Hujjah, Ya Allah, forgive us our sins on a night like this. Ya Allah, make us capable to be from amongst the Ansar and the Ashab of the awaited Imam. Ya Allah, protect our belief and the belief of our family members and our children during these difficult times of ghaiba, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, by the sake of Imam al-Hujjah, Mu'mineen and Mu'minat who have hajat, Ya Allah, do not let any one of them leave except that you have fulfilled their hajat, Ya Allah. By the sake of Imam al-Hujjah, Ya Allah, marhumeen and marhumat who have passed away, you make their graves into a garden from the gardens of Jannah. Ya Allah, by the sake of Imam al-Hujjah, give us the opportunity to perform the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada in the fastest of times, and grant us his intercession and the intercession of his forefathers on the day of judgment. By the sake of Imam al-Hujjah, Ya Allah, grant us the tawfiq to be a part of this movement and to work diligently within the ghaiba of the Imam. وآخر الدعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. يقول الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن
with this, I request Kumar to come and continue with Qasida recitation.
صلوات على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
दिलो नज़र पे तेरा है तेरा मवाजिब है. दिलो नज़र पे तेरा है तेरा मवाजिब है. दिलो नज़र पे तेरा है तेरा मवाजिब مستخب نہیں کہتا یہ کام واجب مستخب نہیں کہتا یہ کام واجب ہے سلام اس لیے کرتا ہوں آپ کو مولا سلام اس لیے کرتا ہوں آپ کو مولا میں جانتا ہوں سلام جواب واجب ہے اے میرے امام اے میرے امام سب مل کے اے میرے امام اے میرے امام آپ پر درود اور سلام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام بس یہی صدا ہے صبح و شام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام ہر نفس تجھے میرا سلام عرض ہے میں تو کیا ہوں ہر نبی ولی پہ فرض ہے دو جہاں میں تیرا احترام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام دو جہاں کی بادشاہ تیری ذات ہے تو ہے اس کا ہاتھ جو خدا کا ہاتھ ہے تیرے ہاتھ بیعت تمام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام آپ پر درود اور سلام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام ذکر خیر آپ کا وظیفہ ہے میرا من کا بت نہیں ہے یہ عریضہ ہے میرا پر رہا ہوں روز صبح و شام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام مانگتے ہیں اور یوں ظہور کی دعا دیکھنا ہے ہم کو انتقام کربلا چاہے پھر ہو زندگی تمام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام اے میرے امام آپ پر درود اور سلام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام۔ چومتے ہیں پاؤں کے تارے آپ کے، چومتے ہیں پاؤں کے تیرے آپ کے، چل رہا ہے دیکھ کے اشارے آپ کے، سارے کائنات کا نظام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام۔ یا علی آپ پر درود اور سلام، اے میرے امام، اے میرے امام۔ پر محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم۔
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
For that kalam. أفضل الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله محمد وآل محمد
صلوا على محمد.
ایک چھوٹا سا منقبت اور اس کے بعد انشاءاللہ استاد سید جعفر کا کلام مہدی بھائی کی درخواست پہ انشاءاللہ سب کے تعاون کے ساتھ۔ بلاتے ہیں رو رو کھیلے عذاب، چلے آؤ ابن مشکل کشا، بلاتے ہیں رو رو کھیلے عذاب، چلے آؤ ابن مشکل کشا، تمہیں حق زہرا کا ہے واسطہ، چلے آؤ ابن مشکل کشا۔ This is with regards to the wabah which is going right now of corona. ہے پھیلی جہاں میں عجب سی وبا، عطا سارے عالم کو کیجئے شفا، عطا سارے عالم کو کیجئے شفا، وسیلہ ہے بیمار کرب و بلا، چلے آؤ ابن مشکل کشا، خدا کی شریعت کا دل شاد ہو، یہ ویران کعبہ پھر آباد ہو، یہ ویران کعبہ پھر آباد ہو، لگانے علم اس پہ عباس کا، چلے آؤ ابن مشکل کشا۔ محمد وآل محمد صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
حال غم سنائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے، حال غم سنائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے، زخم دل دکھائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے، محفلیں جمائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے بام ادھر سجائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے جشن ہم منائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے حال غم سنائیں گے جب امام زخم ہے ابھی تازہ مکہ اور مدینہ کے شام و کوفہ کرب و بلا ہم بلا نہیں سکتے از سقیفۃ دم غیر سے نہیں پہنچے جتنے دکھ اٹھائے ہیں جتنے دکھ اٹھائے ہیں ہم نے کلمہ گویوں سے ایک ایک چکائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے حال غم سنائیں گے جب امام شک ہے جن کو اللہ کے عدل اور عدالت پر منصب نبوت پر سیدہ کی عصمت پر مرتضیٰ کی احمد سے متصل نیابت پر جن کو شک ہے بارہ پر بارہویں کی غیبت پر سب ایمان کھائیں گے سب ایمان کھائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے حال غم سنائیں گے جب امام آئیں الاجل جو کہتے ہیں آ گئے تو کیا ہوگا کیا ہے اپنی تیاری پیش ہم کریں گے کیا like we keep saying Al-Ajal, but what if he comes? What did we do? What are we ready for him? کیا ہے اپنی تیاری پیش ہم کریں گے کیا سبت جعفر اپنا تو کل یہی ہے سرمایہ ہم دو نعت و سوز و سلام اور منقبت نوحہ ہم یہی سنائیں گے ہم یہی سنائیں گے جب امام آئیں گے حال غم سنائیں گے جب امام آئیں الہی ببیمار دشت بلا جو بیمار ہوں جلد پاوے شفا الہی برائے امام رضا میں انہیں بخش دے جو کر گئے قضا. الہی برائے امام زمان ہمیں حول محشر سے دے تو امان. ہے پانچ ونو مل چہار داتن احمد و